Hi, welcome back. Today I'll be talking about why I think this recession, the 2020 recession or depression, whatever you want to call it, is going to be long as or longer than the 2008 financial crisis. Let's talk about it. Okay, so before I begin, I want to tell you right now, I'm not a pro investor, but I'm a cautious guy who is very frugal with my money. Now, going back to the question, do I think that this recession or depression of 2020 will be short or long as or longer than the 2008 financial crisis? My answer is, I believe so. I believe that this 2020 stock market crash will be longer than most people think. It's not going to be a year. It may not be 2 years. It might be at least 3 years. Now, optimistically, I'm thinking maybe 2.5, 3 years. And how I know this, or at least I'm using a model going back to this graph here. Now, I'm using TSX, but you can apply this to Dow Jones as well, because now all the market is global. Now, if you go back to this graph here, you notice that May 2008, just before June, it reached its peak of almost 15,000, and then it dropped all the way down. And before it reached another high peak, it took 2.5 years, March 2011. Now, it hasn't even reached the peak that it's supposed to. Then it dropped again, and then by the time it reached the same peak as the May 2008, it would have been June 2014. That's almost 6 years. Okay, so 6 years before it reached the same level. I was being optimistic. I'm looking at 2.5 years somewhere this peak. That's where I would actually pull my money out. I'm not to be too greedy, and then take it out and then reinvest it again if I was able to see the future, of course, right? So let's go back to this crisis that we're having right now, 2020. What do I think? Well, the 2008 was the financial crisis, the mortgage subprime and all that stuff. Not everybody can relate to that, but the COVID-19 is a bit different. From school children, all the way to seniors, everybody know what it is, how it affects their lives. Think about that. School closure, restaurant closing, can't fly, travel done with. Every part of your life, and you're contained. You are martial lawed in certain country. Think about that. That fear is now ingrained inside every single human being. And for some, this fear cannot be rid of. They may have this trauma. This cannot be taken away for years. It may not even be taken away at all. Some people are saying that COVID-19 is similar to Spanish flu in 1918. Now, I hope that's not the case. Now, if it is, we're in big trouble. And I think all these companies should be ready for that, should expect that this RNA virus may be similar cousin to the Spanish flu. There is, if you go back to 1918, there's actually 3 peaks or cycles. Each peak lasts about 2 to 3 months. The first peak was actually okay. The second peak was the worst. The third peak was okay as well. But if you look at us, in our situation right now, we're reaching the first peak, the first cycle, but we haven't reached the top yet. China, maybe they have, but again, they're going through a stage where they're now cautious about letting people in because they don't want to get reinfected. They don't worry about the second cycle. So right now, America, US, and Canada hasn't reached the peak yet. If you look at the graph, it's constantly accelerating. It hasn't gone to what we call plateauing and then dropped down yet. We're trying to flatten the curve, they say. So hopefully we don't have 3 peaks, we just have 1, but always be prepared. So that's number 1. Number two, now, right now, as you can see, the unemployment rate, I think it's temporary, but if you look at America, right, US, just a couple of days ago, there was unemployment filing of over 3 million, and that was a couple of days ago. I'm thinking it's going to go over time even more. In Canada, it was 500,000. Okay, so I think over time, next month or so, there'll be even more. The closure of a lot of these, entities, right? Restaurants, entertainment center, whatever you can call it, even schools and all that, and supply chain. Whew. I mean, I can go on days listing all the things that was affected. Everyone pretty much is affected by that. Now we can throw in all the money, they call it stimulus package, right? Trillions and trillions of dollars. The question you have to ask yourself, where are we getting all these money? We're hoping that we'll get it back. I don't think so. I think we're going to be stuck with this debt. It's going to be ongoing for a long time, especially if you have 3 cycles. We already throw in the States anyway, they were throwing in almost $7 trillion, and that's just before the maximum peak. They might throw in another 10 trillion, who knows? But what about the second cycle or third cycle? Are they going to keep on throwing 100 trillion at the end? Who, you know what a trillion is? 1,000 billion. I did the calculation already. It would mean like everyone, just for the first, the money that they're throwing in, it would be like right now everyone would be owing close to $5,000 to $10,000 for every single person in the U.S. And that's just for the first stimulus package, if we were to pay it back. Think about that. And if there's more, I don't know how it's going to work here. Okay, so if you look at how many employers are laying off people, now some people say that this is just temporary, but in my opinion, it is not. It is not. They may hire back most people. Okay, for a very strong company that has good balance sheet, they will hire most people, but now they're learning that they can do without 10-20% of the population that they employed. So they'll find out that maybe they only need 80% capacity to maximize their profit. Okay, and in fact, they're very cautious now on which person they hire, because there's added cost to it. If they can work with 80% and get the profit for that, they will do it. And so what do you do with 10-20% that won't go back to work again? Okay, permanent unemployment. Okay, that's the company that's going to continue to grow. What about company that went bankrupt? Right, those companies that hire people, well, they're not going to get people back. I mean, they don't have money, they're bankrupt. So again, that's another 5-10%, right? And small business will be in that category, and self-employed, how they're going to find a job if there's no company that need the service. So you can see that domino effect. Okay, because of that, because of the high unemployment rate, people now, and also the COVID-19, the fear that's ingrained in them now, what's going to happen is people will second guess a lot of things. Fearful. They will not invest in luxury items. They were going to think twice, 5 times. For me, it will be probably 5-10 times before I buy any type of luxury item. I'll think, do I really need to buy it? Who cares if I look good or I'm better than other because I'm wearing a special shoe or special clothes? I need to feed my family, right? At this point, there's social contacts, social interaction is no more. People realize it's all face value, right? So I think our behavior will change too. So, psychologically fearful, ingrained in us, but the way we behave now is different. We don't care how, people see us anymore, because the world has changed. And this is why I think the stock market will not go back to normal. And if you look at demographic, population-wise, the millennial and the newer generation, my kids anyway, they're different than the baby boomer. The way of thinking is a bit different. Now, I would say my kids, after the millennial, it's very similar to the baby boomer, or the Generation X, like me. Okay, very conservative, very frugal, at least my kids anyway. But the millennial are totally different than the baby boomer and even Generation X. So their generation, I don't know how that's going to be. They don't think the same way as the baby boomer, where the baby boomer are into real estates, whereas the millennial are into experiential investment. They're investing in their experience rather than in the physical thing like house and gold and all that stuff. So we have two different type of thinking, and how this is going to unfold, yeah, very unpredictable. And with fear, instability, civil unrest comes civil war. So countries that's already lacking resources, unstable, is in development, is developing, will face many crises, will lead to civil wars. And even in the developed country, it will lead to civil unrest, and eventually some of these developed countries may use this as an excuse to start global war. And the reason why they would do that, this will actually help trigger a reset the debt crisis. So maybe they were to bring it back to zero once they restart everything. It's almost like one of those defibrillator on the heart, like that, right? And restart again. So maybe that's the trick under the hat. Who knows? But I can see that this COVID-19, the pin that pricks the water balloon, will change the way we view the world. It is different. Yes, the market may go up, but I don't think it will go up very long. Anything causes fear will cause the volatility of this market. In fact, I think this volatility will last for a long, long time. It won't be a year. It might be for years. The question is how we are able to sustain, we are able to adapt to this volatility. Now, for some day trader, this is a good thing for them because, they may benefit from this. But for people who put money in their pension, it depends on when you take your pension money out. You may take out when it's high, and some of you in 10 years from now will take it when it's low. So the situation may fluctuate relatively fast. And I think that's the future. The future that is certain for sure is the uncertainty. That is for sure. Thanks for watching EducateTube.com.